All right, so what I did is I took those panels of what were solid red colors, and I instead filled them with, or I took their opacity down, and then I filled them with these very subtle gradients at low opacities. So you can see a little bit of that color, the oranges and the pinks coming through the warms. So let's say that this is what I like. And I want to make sure that it looks good on backgrounds other than just white, because even a color logo needs to be versatile. So let me unlock these other layers, bring the whole thing over onto the gray, make sure it works. Yeah, that's pretty strong. Okay, so this is my color alternatives, and I can save this obviously as my AI file, that's fine, but I also can save it as an EPS and then bring it into Photoshop. You have to save it as an EPS before you can bring it into Photoshop. That's the only vector file format that goes between the two easily. Okay, and then I can close this. I can open up my Photoshop file where I have already my black logo on 350 pixels per inch. I have my Color Solutions with Layer Styles logo, and now I'm going to bring in this alternative coloring. Now this is a little bit different shape, right? So I'm going to instead make this canvas size 10 inches by 10 inches so I can fit them all on the same file if I want to. Actually, I might need to shrink this one a little bit to fit it on, but it's fine because it's a smart object. It's always going to match the resolution that I have. All right, so that's how I think it would look good. Make sure that if I crop it there and there, so this would be 8 by 10 on its side, that it would look good. So let's move it up a little bit. All right, so that's how it would look on white. That's how it would look on gray. And then of course I can save that color alternate logo as a PNG and put that, if I want to, it's optional, all these different versions from the same logo design up to PhotoBucket. But of course, because it's an EPS file now in Photoshop, I can also, let's put it on gray here, fill the entire space up. I can also play with layer styles. So I can add a drop shadow to it, to the entire shape, right? I can add glows to it to kind of soften that drop shadow a little bit. I'll add an outer glow. It's very subtle. Just soften its edge so it's not so crisp. See that? And these are things we can turn on and off. Without the glow, really sharp. With the glow, nice and soft. I can put a satin effect on it, which is just kind of a desaturating effect that leaves little puddles of highlight on the edges, like rippling satin. I can try different blending modes. I kind of like what that does to the colors. It deepens the contrast in the colors. An overlay mode. I don't think I want an inner shadow. I don't want an inner glow. I already have the outer glow. Let's see if I really, well, maybe the inner glow would be nice. Take its opacity down a bit. Really spread it out. I don't want a stroke. I don't want a color overlay, a gradient overlay. I already have enough gradients coming in. I can put a pattern over it. There's so many different options. You can import your own pattern. This is how you would put texture. There's a few ways you can put texture, but you can do it with a pattern as well. I can make that like an overlay layer so that you can see that pattern in it. But I can also, I think the better way to do that is with the subtle texture. That looks nice. Yeah. And then let's see, what does that look like without the outer glow? Yeah, I think that drop shadow is a little too strong. So instead of having the outer glow, I think I'm just going to dim that drop shadow. Yep. Okay, so that looks pretty good on gray. Let's see how that looks on white. Remember, it's all about versatility. I'll fill that whole space. The reason the drop shadow is important is because I used a white stroke. And so without that drop shadow, you wouldn't get the outside edge of that leaf at all. You know, it's very subtle, but that way you can still determine all the edges. So this is kind of that watercolory, fancier type of coloring for the logo. And then if you want to see the ultimate versatility, let's make a duplicate of that background and then fill it with black. And if it looks good on white, gray, and black, it will look good on anything. And so on black, I lose the drop shadow, but it still has that impact, right? And remember, the E and then this highlight is always going to be whatever that background color is. Yeah, I think I like it best on white like that. Fairly sophisticated. Okay, so how do I upload it? I turn off all the backgrounds and I save this. This will be my color alternate 2. So from the same black and white logo, you can have lots and lots of different variations that are all perfectly reasonable and relate well to the identity you've designed. No one would mistake this for a different company than the simple black logo, even though the color takes a lot of different directions, right? Okay. So you can play with as many different color options as you like. Color options should be more versatile, or you shouldn't feel like they have to be as universal as your black and white one needs to be. And so I think I'll be uploading at least 2 color versions, these 2 different PNGs. And so that's 5 in all for this assignment. Just to really show you what you can do. Kind of like I did with the Colonel Sanders zombie mashup last semester. Showing it with a drop shadow, without a drop shadow, flat color, and with a background color. And this is pulling out all the stops. So this is coloring within Illustrator. So I'll call this Carl 4. Just using coloring tools within Illustrator. Very different than the layer styles within Photoshop. And then adding to that the layer styles within Photoshop. So this will be Carl 5. Now, is this overdone? Yeah, probably. For a very specific use. You don't want that embroidered on jackets, right? But for, stationery or a website, it had something to do with, this looks very much like I don't know, soft watercolor tea set kind of logo. So for something that related to that, that would make a lot of sense. And you can see all the choices that were used in there. But for sheer versatility, this is where it's at. And that is our logo design project. We are going to be using these logo design skills now, these vector skills, in the next project to make an actual illustration. And we're going to do Earth Day themed illustrations now. But we'll try to find ways to make them more personal, more interesting. But we will understand the importance of using a vector for what a vector is good at, which is cleanliness, clean edges. So we'll use a vector for our line work. Come on. And so here's a simple intro, just to get you thinking about why we're learning these vector tools, even if we don't want to always be making logos. Well, here's a sketch, an ink sketch, that I turned into a vector, clean lines, and then I use those clean outlines, and then I color within it in Photoshop to get the cleanest possible illustration, where the lines are perfectly smooth. But then I can color behind the lines, and I can color on top of the lines. These are called color holds, and this is what's called duotone soft color behind. So we're going to learn about digital coloring with the next project on top of and behind vector outlines. And this is my demo, but this is a Jeff Smith character named Bone. Fangbone, I think. So you'll see those different examples of using vector line work and then coloring behind it. And then we can use those illustrations. We want them to be fairly versatile as well, which is why there'll be spot illustrations. We can use them as stickers, we can use them as t-shirts, we can use them as posters. All right, that's it.